We've also observed the aquatic environment is getting a lot of these plastics. If you go near Bara, we've had a study. We went to Bara at the beach side. You will be surprised how much plastic people are throwing from the ferries. They all land on that side. You will get tons of plastic in a week. We also discovered that when we have our aquatic area being caught, we do find plastic in their intestine. The livestock also equally do cry. We had some surveys, and we do notice, even if you go to Abuko, you made an, we've been sending some gentlemen to see whether they can look at the intestines of the, we are seeing lots of plastic. And that supported us and gave us the need to make sure we support the process of banning the plastic. Also, our wives, our sisters, moms and sisters, are also using plastic in a way that it's not at all appropriated, because they are born in plastic, and we are seeing carcinogenic elements going out of which they are inhaling, they never knew. Those and many others are the reasons why we still support plastic to be banned in this country. I was challenged many times to try to convince me to say I should do everything possible to encourage the new government to lift the ban on plastic. But what I do tell people, until I see a change in the reasons why the plastic is being banned, I am not going to support the process. And the reasons why they are banned are still in existence. So we are trying. Of late, I came to my honorable minister. We wanted to encourage an investor to come up with a plant to recycle plastic. But honorable minister, even that one, we are remaining with other. Have the Gambians changed their attitude of throwing plastic everywhere? Have we changed that attitude? Will our livestock not be eating that plastic anymore? And the aquatic organism. These are some of the things we still need to work on. We did a lot of sensitization on this plastic, but we are not getting anything. So that is the status with plastic. Unfortunately, Honorable Minister, I was not in the country. We spent a lot of money preparing for an enforcement exercise with the Joint Operation Center. But to my surprise and disappointment, I was communicated when I was out that a particular head of a region completely requested the police to withdraw their men from the exercise. That means you are exposing my people to being killed, because the women at the market and the people do confront them and want to fight with them. Why are you telling the police to withdraw? And to my disappointment, I am told the Inspector General of Police also withdrew his men. That is serious. It's unbelievable. Because this is an exercise that went through a normal process, and we thought it was going to be possible. In fact, you can see a report we had. That particular region, even when some of them were summoned, they are refusing to appear to the courts, because I want to believe they have that regional executive support. That is with the, yes, we have a challenge in going and tackling all those, taking all those people to court, because we are still having a problem with the judicial system. The magistrate given to us, maybe he's just new in tackling environmental cases, but he's very slow. We have a backload, but we wrote a letter to the Judiciary Secretary to try to address that thing, and we hope with that thing done, Banjul, the KMC, and West Coast will be dealt with, so that the provinces, there are packs of cases already piled there. So we need to look at that. That's the status with the plastic. The other challenging one, which had been, but we thought Gambians now realize the truth that we are the fish mills. That's the Golden Lead of Gunjur, the Nursing Company of Sanyang, and the JXY of Katong. These are fish mills. Yes, fish mill industries are new to the Gambia, but they are not new to the world. I was surprised again through the media. I'm seeing that people saying that these people are using poisonous, hazardous chemicals in their processing. How can you use that one? If any company does that, you will find yourself in the prisons because they are either used for animal feeds or human consumption, the oil. So if Gambians here have been convinced to say that they use chemical hazardous elements in that, it's something I thought needs to be told. We went around, my honorable minister with another colleague, we went to Golden Lead to prove that this is not true, because we can even see the wastewater from that factory is being used for the garden that is there, and they are growing vegetables. And that was not the case. We were told, using the media now, a dolphin died in
Gunjur.
Gunjur? No, they said it was Gunjur, but yeah, it is on the other side of Senegal, Casamas. You know, somebody got it and put it in the mouth and said, because of that plant, that dolphin died. This is serious. We were amazed, and we traced it with the support of our technical advisor. We discovered that this was not even in the Gambia. It was in Senegal. So these are some of the things that are. And with the fish meals, yes, we had a problem. The problem is most of the time it's the fisher folks that will bring the stock. If the company cannot take it, what they do is they just dump it. This was the practice that had been creating problems for the country. We challenged the Department of Fisheries and the ministry to look at that issue thoroughly for us to work together. And I thought for now, they are doing a lot about that. They've been trying to ration fisher folks on the amount of product, how many fishermen will go out, and how much product will be coming. In fact, unfortunately for the Gambia, even and for those factories, all of them are not working as we are speaking now, because there is no stock. The fisher folk, the Senegalese fisher folks that they depend on were away, and they are just coming back. So where we are, Gunjur, the plant is not operating, Katong is not operating, Sanyang is not at all operating. So you can see that one, for me, it's already finished. The other thing is the factories that we are having as a problem, and I am challenged. Even the National Assembly called my attention on that. And in fact, we did try to explain to them that they are not having everything right. The Environment Agency or the Ministry of Environment does not give license for operations in factories and does not give license on sand mining. What we do as a ministry and its line in the agency is we do give environmental clearance. To give a license to operate a factory in this country, you have a list of criteria to fulfill. One of those criteria is acquiring an environmental approval. That is only what we do give them. And we don't give environmental approval if you are not satisfied with the setup of the factory, with what the factory is emitting, and how he will be taking care of his waste. So usually, when we give our clearance, doesn't necessarily mean the license is coming. That is what we told the thing. I told them, coincidentally, as head of the Environmental Agency, I'm also the chair of the factories board. And yes, there I am the chair of the factories board. We have to fulfill not only the EIA conditions of approval, but other conditions. Physical planning will be playing its role, making sure the plan of the factory is good. We'll know the land even. In fact, for NEA to even come and look at anything, ownership is being established. We do not go and look at a factory or work for an environmental approval for any factory if that factory or that business entity does not have an ownership, where he has a land where he will or she will be operating, or it's over. These are some of the basic things before environmental approvals come into play. We made that one very clear to the National Assembly colleagues of the National Assembly, and also we made it clear to them having even an environmental clearance should not be able to give any business its permit to operate if the other conditions are not met. Likewise for quarrying, quarrying is being taken care of by the geology department, not with environment agency. We made that one also very clear. Yes, the environment goes beyond that. We have problems with things like emissions in this country. We have a backload of very old vehicles, and the gases we are emitting are terrible. I can admit when coming to work, I am not too happy. But all these things we want to be in the form to do things legally. We could have jumped. We had some MOUs with the police some years back, but past riots, the kids put them down. They thought the machines were spying on them when they were meant for another thing. So they brought all those machines down. So we are trying to work again to make sure we get those machines. Then we can make sure we do something with the emissions of vehicles also. And also I was talking to my honorable minister some time ago. He did want to tackle this issue. We are even thinking of looking at the age of vehicles that coming into this country. So we are working with that. We know Senegal, it has to be less than 8 years. Yeah, the Gambia, at first, when we first discussed this issue, we are thinking maybe for 10 years, but that we will still work on those. These and many others are some of the things. I have other colleagues, maybe as we move on, we can dilate on those ones. Thank you.
As the focal point for the Convention on Biological Diversity, I see this opportunity to express the delight that we have for having this prior to the meeting that we are attending for the World Summit on Biodiversity next week, starting next week up till the 29th of November in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. Gambia is putting a very strong team to represent this country and the region. But also, this is a good opportunity for the department and the ministry to share, then enriching the commitment that we made in that convention, to say that we will be sharing, we'll be raising awareness on biological importance of the Gambia for the citizenry to understand what we are doing and how we are faring. Coming back to the issues that we want to discuss today, we have two major issues. The first one is presently we are working on the importance of the protected areas that we have, as the department is responsible for putting aside protected areas for wildlife viewing by tourists. We are trying to reintroduce the lost species that we had previously, so that at least we can bring back the tourists, and with whatever they will bring, the money and everything, so that at least we can gain a lot into revenue generation. So in that situation, we are working with the ministry and other partners, whereby we want to reintroduce some lost species in Abuko, but also in Kiang West National Park and other parks under forestry department. And this one we've already signed a concession agreement with Abuko tourism company, a company based in Senegal that is running the Fatala camp. Then they want to come in so that at least they can improve the status inside Abuko Nature Reserve. We've also signed some other concession agreement for Kiang West, but that one needs the revision, and we are looking into it. So the other issue is the human-wildlife conflict that we have in the country, which is also a burning issue. The conflict around the hippo population. As we know, today the area of intervention of these hippos is shrinking. It's becoming very tight because of the advancement of the salt water into the river Gambia. So the hippos are pushed towards freshwater areas, and those areas today are becoming very tight. So you have a lot of hippos in very small area. So they have, and if people are cultivating up to the bank of the river, so they are not left anything that to invade those rice fields for them also to get the food. So these are the issues that we are working, and for the information we are working with Choso NEMA project that is supporting us to put barriers to prevent these hippos to invade those rice fields, but also we are negotiating through this process with communities so that at least we can establish some grazing areas for those hippos to allow them to graze before they go in the other side of the fence. So presently we've already raised 5-kilometer long fence in the LRR, CRR, and other areas, URR, and until next year we'll be pursuing this process to work with agriculture so that at least we can safeguard the grazing area of these hippos, but also avoid the conflict for food scarcity. So these are the two major issues that I wanted to share, and as we will be discussing, we can provide more information on other issues as questions are raised. Thank you.
I am Mr. Mohamed Jaite. I'm the director of the forestry. Basically, I would thank you for this session, in the sense that, okay, then that would at least give us the opportunity to highlight or to showcase our achievements during the year 2018. So to start with, we'll start with the institutional capacity building, because as you know, that, okay, then all the institutions, if at all they are supposed to run and then function properly, there are supposed to be certain documentations that are supposed to be in place to ensure that they are helping the institution in the operation of its mandates. So I have the pleasure to inform you that, okay, then the first achievement that we realized in the year was the approval of the the Forestry Act, because this act was, the bill was prepared since 2010, and then it kept on dragging because of what? Change of directors or change of ministers, until when the new government came in, we succeeded with the parliament, and then it was approved and then signed by the president, in April 2018. And then after the approval and the signature, then we produced copies and then distributed to our colleagues or our partners that we are working with, especially the regional governors, the district chiefs, the regional forestry officers, the Gambia Police Force, and then as well as the administrative circle heads, so that they will have something, a legal document in hand, to pursue forestry offenses, or to give them, an informed, advisory, basis, when they are taking up decisions, so that they would have the legal bargain. But in addition to that as well, to support the institution in their operations as well, the validation of the guidelines and then plans were also realized, because in the first place, the fire management guideline was also developed and then validated. This is a participatory one that we do with the communities, so that they are the people who know the hotspots in their areas, and then they develop their fire management plan, so that, okay, then in the event that there are incidents of fires, then they will approach it, and then approach it in a way which is going to be very strategic. And then they also put, their plans in place to ensure that, okay, then fire doesn't come towards, their areas. In addition to that as well, the dry land management, the plan guidelines are also being prepared. These are guidelines which will support the staff and then our collaborators in the field as to how, they will manage the forest resources on the ground. And then the agroforestry guidelines also were also prepared and then approved. The National Forestry Action Plan was expired since 2010, and then it was not, reviewed or renewed until, just recently when this new government came in, after 8 years, but we managed to, at least, review that, and then now it's updated, and then as well as, for the first time, having a National Forestry Strategic Plan. All these documents are being prepared now, and then they are being used in the field. Now, on staff and community forestry committees capacity building, because the staff who are implementing these activities and the communities who are also implementing activities in their community forests also have to be capacitized. We all learned that, okay, then there is a forestry training school in Kafuta since 1992, where, students are being recruited. Fresh, the school leavers are being recruited, and then they are taken to the school there and trained on basic applied forest management. And then of recent, we collaborated with our friends, because previously it was only forestry, but now it's forestry and wildlife management. Because you learn that, okay, then fine, in the university here and the tertiary institutions here, there is no opportunity or chance to study either forestry or wildlife. All of us, we went outside of the Gambia, even for certificate. You have to move outside of the Gambia to do only certificate in forestry. So we thought that, okay, then fine, it is very important we have an establishment here in the Gambia so that we can train the young foresters only to certificate level. And then we are also trying to ensure that, okay, then it goes up, to diploma level, and then as well as integrating it to the University of the Gambia. Those are all plans that we have, but we are working on with, on that together with the university. So just recently, 30 students from the Department of Parks and Wildlife and then Forestry graduated, and then they are now in the field implementing the Gambia Forest Management Concept and the National Biodiversity Action Plan. Now, every year we embark on tree planting. But you have to lay, the hands on the planting stock before you conduct any tree planting. So we ensure that, okay, then seedling propagation is done on time, and then they are also done at our central nurseries, at the regional level, and then as well as at, the forestry stations that are distributed across the country. But as well as at community level, because we also, build the capacities of the communities as how to raise their own seedlings. So that they can either use it for planting in their forestry, community forestry areas, or on their farmlands. But as well as they can also venture into the commercialization of those seedlings to at least boost up their economic standard in the communities. So statistically what we have gathered is that, okay, then 45,000 seedlings were raised for the 2018 the planting period. And then I'm sure it is more than this, because for most of the communities, we were unable to get the statistics, the proper statistics from them. But what we have gathered from our central nurseries, and then as well as from our sub-nurseries, we raised 45,000 seedlings. And then those seedlings were distributed to either the communities, private individuals, associations that are interested in tree planting, so that they can plant them. And then, because we want to do away from the government taking the lead, because if we take the lead, we know that, okay, then taking care of these seedlings, sometimes it becomes a challenge. And then we also encourage, the communities to plant not only seedlings raised, in the nurseries, but the other vegetative parts of the plants, like the stumps, from Malina, because in Nyambai, we have these Malina plantations there. And then we can get these stumps. These are the regenerations that are coming up from the system of the forest floor. Then we uproot those and then trim them to a size whereby people who are interested, they can easily collect them and then go and plant them. So we distribute it without charges 487,500 minor stumps were distributed to either private individuals or associations, and then to community forestry associations or committees. And then we also supported, there's a bamboo association, and then other communities also are interested in bamboo, raising of bamboo. We have distributed 553,300 bamboo cuttings. These are cuttings, you don't raise them, you just cut them from the ones that are growing, and then they go and plant them in the field. Because it is also used as furniture. If you are used to this, I mean, how to call it again, the Senegambia highway, you see that, okay, then people are now using it to construct beds or to construct furniture in general. So we are also encouraging now the communities to go in for that, so that, I mean, at least they can produce their own furniture and then sell even to the, how to call it again, to the tourist areas. And then in relation to restoration again, approximately 6 hectares of degraded mangrove forest areas, were planted with mangrove propagates, because you will witness that, okay, then the Bintambolong is one of the most affected tributaries that you will find in the Gambia when it comes to, I mean, the mangrove forest, I mean, the cover. You will see that when you are going through, how to call it again, Brumen Bridge, you will see that, okay, then those mangroves were planted there. We pilot tested that 2010, 2011, and then we found out that, okay, I mean, they are doing very well, because we did almost 10 communities, over 70 hectares of it, that, okay, then fine, they are thriving very well, and then now the marine or the fisheries, I mean, the resources is also coming by, because these are the spawning areas that the fish are also using. Then this year alone, the Department of Forestry did 6 hectares, but we did it now, because those ones along the Bintambolong is on the West Coast side. But on the other side, which is, I mean, the Kiang West side, this is now where we are concentrating now, and then we did 6 hectares there. Then during the launching of the tree planting, we planted 500 seedlings of coconuts along the coastline, that is at Banjul, just behind Atlantic Hotel, coming towards the cemetery. With the support of the Chinese, we planted 500 coconut seedlings, at least to improve the beauty of the shore, and then as well as to stabilize the movement, of sun, around that end. Now on governance, of forest and then forest management. Of recent, we were out in the field, because, okay, then we are promoting community forest management, and according to the policy of the department, that is the forestry department, we are supposed to hand over 200,000 hectares of forest land. That is the target of the forest policy, because the total forest area of the Gambia is 423,000 hectares. So half of that has to go back to the communities. Let them take the lead. Let the department withdraw, and then support the communities technically, so that they can take ownership of the management of resources that are very close to them, that they are benefiting from. So this is why we put this half of the total area of forest cover in the Gambia back to the communities. And then there are three phases, so I will not go into those technicalities, but we were out this year, and then we handed over 30, the PCFMAs. That is, the preliminary community forest management agreement. That is the testing phase. We were out together with the minister. We handed over to 30 communities all over the country, equivalent to 963 hectares, of forest land, And then from there also, we did not leave, the communities empty-handed, but we distributed, or we provided them with firefighting and nursery management equipment, worth of $2 million of firefighting equipment and nursery management equipment that they can use to control fire, but as well as to raise seedlings, at their own level. So, because in the policy also we are saying that, okay, then fine, we have to use the forest resources at least to alleviate poverty at rural level. But how can we do that? That is true only through the commercialization directly of forest products. But this time round we are saying no to, the commercialization of timber, what we say commercialization of non-wood forest products, because this is what is sustainable. These are the fruits, you know, the cabas, the tall, you know, the dita, and then so on. Eh? So we encourage the communities at least to conserve their forest areas. Instead of felling a tree and then selling it once, it's better you collect those fruits and then you sell the fruits. The following year also, you will harvest more again, and then you sell. So it is, how to call it again, it is sustainable, isn't it? And then just to mention that, okay, then the Gambia, though we are very small when it comes to size, or when it comes to forest management, you know, we can say that, okay, then in Africa, we are a champion. We are a champion in participatory forest management. The first community forest management conference was held in the Gambia here, all over the world. It was held in the Gambia here, in Senegal, in 1998. All countries came here. So this participatory, the commercialization of forest product also was pilot tested in the Gambia here by FAO. That is this market analysis and development, how the communities can benefit from the sales of forest products. That one also was pilot tested in the Gambia, and then it was a success story, whereby even people are even moving out from the Gambia here to go and train other people in the sub-region how to do it, in Liberia, Sierra Leone, and then you name it. You know, our staff are moving to those areas to support them, how to do it. So we managed to at least train 26 communities, additional 26 communities who are at the Community Forest Management Agreement on the market analysis and development. But we also supported in the development of their enterprise development plans, 23 products that they identified, going through the process that, okay, then sustainably they can manage it. Then we developed an enterprise plan with them. So 23, the enterprise plans were developed around 23 products, with interest groups. And the infrastructural, development and refurbishment works. Summarize, yeah. Then, okay, then construction work, and then we are on construction work in various regions, and then including as well as, Salaji, and the refurbishment of, the old offices that we have in the region, so that the staff will have a comfortable place for doing their work. And then the institutional collaboration, we are collaborating with Senegal, Gambia, and then Bissau to have a transboundary forestry project and household energy management, you know, to address the illegal movement of forest products between these three countries. But now we are working with World Bank to ensure that the project is off and running. And then we are also implementing the Action Against Desertification project, which is also addressing, you know, the UNCCD, strategies and then operations. Then we are also working, with the Nemo Choso project. We are implementing their forestry activities, and then of recent we have signed a memorandum of understanding with NAWEC for the restoration of the areas that are affected by the grid from Senegal to the Gambia to ensure that, okay, at least we do some restoration activities with those 9 communities. And then of recently we have concluded the signing of a memorandum of understanding with OMVG for the the hydroelectric dam, electric supply that is coming to the Gambia. All affected vegetative or vegetations that are being affected by this grid will be restored by the Department of Forestry.
Honorable Minister for Environment and Natural Resources, Climate Change and Natural Resources, for giving me this opportunity to meet you and your colleague from the Ministry of Information. I'm just going to give you briefly what the project is about and some of the achievements we have delivered so far. Yes. Thank you for the reminder. I am Lamin Nyangado, the project manager for the ecosystem-based adaptation project. The project, I just need to give a little background before going into the achievements, because for the interest of those people that have not had the privilege of interacting with the project or the privilege of hearing about the project. The project actually emerged out of the experiences that were gathered by the Forestry Department and the Parks and Wildlife in terms of forest management and forest restoration, and of course in response to climate change impacts. The justification for the project actually is based on the fact that the communities in the country and of course certain sectors have become very, very, very vulnerable to climate change impacts. That was the justification given for the project. And the outcome is to reduce vulnerability of these local communities as well as the sectors of the economy. The project is divided into three main components, one of which is the restoration of the lost forest lands and agricultural lands, which aims to rehabilitate 7,000 hectares of forest lands and conservation lands, including, of course, mangrove areas. Then the second component deals with businesses, business enterprises, because what has been realized is that in this country, because of poverty, because of limited opportunities for the population, many of our rural population depend on natural resources for their survival. And therefore, it was seen or found necessary to really get into businesses that would add value to the products coming from these natural resources to benefit those communities, particularly women. The third aspect is institutional strengthening and policy support. That is to actually facilitate the strengthening of policies and institutions of the government. In terms of targets, the project is targeting about over 11,000 beneficiaries, direct beneficiaries, 50% of which should be women. And indirectly, it would reach 46,000 or more. And of course, here also we are targeting 50% women. Some of the accomplishments, of course, from the project design, we were able to develop a comprehensive one-year plan, which we are implementing. And having done that, we also launched the project at the national level, which was presided over by the Secretary General on behalf of the President. We had expected the President to do that, but because of his busy schedule, he was unable. But he delegated the Secretary General to do that on his behalf. Then we went to the regions, because the project is being implemented in LRR, URR, and CRR, both banks of the two regions. So we had inceptions in these regions. In effect, the project was also launched in all these regions, presided over by the governors. The project also conducted a baseline, which was essential to know precisely where we are coming from, to be able to design projects and activities that would respond to the needs of the people that actually are vulnerable to climate change. As part of that process, we've already signed memoranda of understanding with the various departments, the departments under the ministry that are the key implementing departments for the project. Department of Parks, Department of Forestry, Department of Agriculture, because under agriculture we also have 3,000 hectares to actually rehabilitate. Then we signed an agreement, a memorandum of understanding with the GRTS, which was initiated with the Honorable Minister when he was the Director General of GRTS. And I'm pleased to inform you that the process is on. We have had our maiden sensitization with the Honorable Minister of Environment. We'll be going there next week again with the heads of departments. Then we've done the sensitization of the National Assembly members of the Select Committee on Environment. We've also done some studies to actually, as part of the baseline, which is, one of which is the economic study to look at the viability of the enterprises that we want to really establish with the communities. Well, as part of the governance, we know there is a PSC, a Project Steering Committee. In the original design of the project, this was supposed to meet once a year, but then after the first meeting, we felt it was necessary to increase this to 4 meetings, at least for them to be on top of, because it's the beginning of the project, for them to be on top of the process, to be able to advise and guide the implementation. Then, in terms of our policy work, we've supported the ministry. We will also continue to look at other policy instruments and strategies to support in terms of revising them, as well as integrating climate change issues into them. Yeah. Recently, we have completed some tree planting exercises with natural trees, indigenous trees, and a total of 244,000 of different plant species were planted across the regions, or the target regions. Out of this, 30% was planted in LRR, 29% in CRR South, 20% in CRR North, 7% in URR South, and 2% in URR North. This does not really mean low performance in those regions, but because of the planting areas which were being targeted, the URR has very limited community forests, and therefore the low planting rate in the area. Okay. Of course, as part of this, I just wanted to highlight some of the challenges, if that is. Okay. This also included planting of mangroves, as he has said, particularly in the Kiang area.
Yeah. For coming up with this initiative for government to be frequently dialoguing with the press, by extension, the public of the Gambia. This is very important because there are a lot of good things happening that people are talking about, but they don't understand the issues. So we, as guardians, custodians of those portfolios, we need to come out to clarify some of those issues. And I would want to thank you and your team for initiating this. My technicians have talked about some issues which I would not, they are technical, I can go into them, but I would just want to deal with policy matters. I mean, plastic, we all understand plastic was banned in this country, and it was done through a due process that went through Cabinet and the National Assembly. And Gambians need to understand that this law cannot just be uprooted like that. Even if it has to do, we have to go through a process, which we have not foreseen for now, because the conditions, as the director said, are still there. So I would want every Gambian to understand that the plastic ban order is still in place, and we have not lifted it. And anybody found wanting, the law will take its course. This is a message that I would want every Gambian to understand. I always said environment is the most difficult portfolio because it has to do with attitude. People's attitude is very difficult to manage. But it is only left to us Gambians to understand that we can make changes if only we are ready to change our attitudes. This is very, very important. Dr. Baji touched on something that every time you see people putting ebe in plastic, bags, not knowing that plastic contains some chemicals, that when it gets into contact with heat, it comes up, furen. And some use this to light their charcoals and what. These are carcinogenic elements that when they get into your system, gradually it kills you. This is why we are out. All these measures are put in place to protect the Gambian population. We are not doing it just for the sake of doing it, or we are not doing it to stifle anybody's economic activity. We are doing it to safeguard the environment, the animals, and the human beings. Because if we don't do, we are inviting for a major public health catastrophe, which, as a developing country, our health system would not be able to take care of. So preventive medicine before curing. This is what we are trying to do. So the Gambians need to understand that this is where we are coming from. We are not good. Yes, economics matters, but there are other alternatives. There are other alternative economic opportunities that can be explored. This is why we are coming up with these projects to identify alternative livelihood support system to those who are doing this. So, I mean, it is important for all of us to understand this. Now, within the broader framework, plastics aside, we as a ministry, we are aware of the challenges that the environment poses to us. We all knew 25, 30, 40 years ago, the rains we used to have, we no longer have that because people are interfering with the hydrological cycle. Whether you know it or not, when you remove one tree, you don't know how much you are removing from your environment. And you don't know how much carbon dioxide you are allowing to stay to invite global warming. And we all know, Gambia, this is why we take climate change very seriously, because Gambia is very vulnerable to climate change, particularly our capital city, which is just 0.5 meters above sea level. With 1 meter sea level rise, predictions are Banjul will go. This is why, as a ministry, we have reviewed the 1998 Forest Act, that, as the director said, we now have a new Forest Act in place that was enacted by Parliament in 2018 April. And to support this act, we developed guidelines and policies and plans that will support the implementation of this plan. And the director has already highlighted some of those. But within the broader framework of our commitments to our multilateral environment agreements, like the Paris Agreement, the UNFCCC, the UNCCD, the UNCBD, we have to come up with national strategies to be able to achieve those targets under these agreements. Not only achieving our national targets, but also working towards achieving our international obligations. I was happy when we got a UNEP mission here who came to see me and said, we have run the data on Gambia on environment, and we have seen that Gambia has done far more than many of the developing countries, and therefore we would want you to, and Rwanda, to run a side event in one of the UNFCCC meetings, that to show people how far Gambia has gone. So we are doing all this to support a process. And this is why we also came up, we know that climate change is something new, we come up with a climate change policy. This climate change policy was also approved by Cabinet in May 2018. And now we are in the process of implementing the policy. And this policy, you look at the institutional arrangements, we have the interministerial committee that will be very soon inaugurated before the end of December, that all the ministers that their portfolios have impact on climate change are part of this interministerial council. And below that level, you also have the technical committee where the permanent secretaries, the directors, will come to support the implementation for the ministers to have that oversight function. Now, the crux of the matter here is for us to build resilience. Resilience in our local communities to be able to stand the shocks from climate change. If rains do not come, you have poor harvest. What do you do as a poor farmer? So we must enhance our mitigation and adaptive capacities that the local people can gain to be able to stand the weather of climate change. In response to that, in 2016, 2017, we got a grant from the World Bank through the African Development Bank to the tune of 1.5 million US dollars to develop the strategic program on climate resilience. And we have developed this program, which is a 10-year investment that goes to support the climate policy, that goes to support all other instruments that we have to support the climate resilience of this country. And now that report is ready, with the support of an international consultant and a local consultant, we now having this strategic program that is almost about 365 million US dollar investment over 10 years. Just for that is conservative. It could be more than that. That is conservative. But why we are saying this, because for the people to understand that not only the Ministry of Environment, technology has a lot to do with climate change. Technology has a lot to do with, environmental problems. This morning we are just talking about that. Research, science, technology, and innovation. That is the direction that we want to take. That we must be innovative to solve our environmental problems. As a country, somebody talked about emission. Our objective here is to reduce our national carbon footprint. How do we do this? We look at other alternatives, like you look at the Ministry of Energy, we have the energy roadmap. The energy roadmap, which is a mix of hydropower, which is coming from the OMVG, which is also very advanced. I will talk a little about that. Also, this solar plant. Under our NAMA, the Nationally Appropriate Mitigation Actions, we are also looking to have provided 12 megawatts of electricity, either off-grid or we have a mini-grid. Now, all this is to reduce our carbon footprint. But we cannot do that alone. We have to do that in support, with the support of our line ministries, our development partners. So this is basically that we are working on. The director maybe is an oversight. Kiankas were to be swallowed by water from Tendaba. With the Coastal Resilient Project that is supported by Jeff through the UNDP and the Gambia government, we are able to push the Tendaba Sea by 150 meters. And also we are doing some protection around the Senegambia area. All this is to ensure that we have a vibrant tourism sector and diversify our tourism product. Now, diversifying tourism product entails a lot. This is why the Deputy Director talked about we want to restore and restock some of our protected areas with some animal species and some tree species that would attract nature for the tourists to be attracted to the Gambia. And this is exactly what we are doing with the Abuko, with Kiang West National Park. But of recent, in addition to that, we got an offer from the Zimbabwean government that they can support in technical capacity building, as well as providing some animal species, which I have unilaterally decided to take to Kiang. I have decided to take that to Kiang because when I went on my tour, I am impressed. I was really impressed with, the vegetation cover in Kiang. To be frank, that is the credit that I would give them this morning. Now, with regards to the fish meals the director talked about, which I don't want to, I have clearly said this with Kerr Fatou, and I think the records are there for everybody to see the process we went through. And as he said, granting environmental license does not mean that, we have given you this too. And I know Fatou Toure would be watching. Mandinaring. I have visited Mandinaring, myself and my director and some of the technicians, and we have seen the issue. Now, we are also in discussion with the National Water and Electricity Company, NAWEC, because most of the things that they do there comes from NAWEC's used oil. And now, if they don't use that oil, it means that the creek along this Senegambia would all be polluted with waste oil. But we are looking at other possible means. We are talking with other companies who can restore the properties of that oil to become not fuel, but it can gain its properties to be, oil that can be used in engines. So we are looking at all those possibilities, and we know the problem. The problem in Mandinare is this. Now, sometimes you smell some pungent smells, like rotten egg, because of the sulfur that is coming out of the process. When the sulfur is not burned, it reacts with the carbon dioxide, so it has sulfur dioxide, which is very, 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 smelly. It's very irritating, the smell. So, but when you burn it, when we went there the other time, he was burning it, and then there was no smell. So I asked the director, let them sit down with them and put as a condition that until we find a lasting solution, this is, however expensive it is, that is how they're going to do their operation. So for that is what we say. For the forest school, I'm very passionate about this because we want maybe in the next 10, 15 years for Gambia to be a center of excellence for natural resource management. So the department and the partners, we are in discussion with the University of the Gambia to upgrade from certificate level to diploma and bachelor's level, so that at least some other West Africans can come to the Gambia to also do some training in the Gambia. So, and also we, as a ministry, we also develop within the framework of the NDP. We also develop our strategic plan, which we have already internally validated with all the departments. And we have also developed a natural resource policy, which we are in discussion with the Ministry of Agriculture to amalgamate. That is where the support of the EBA project is also looking at, to support how to amalgamate the two policies, and we call it agriculture and natural resource policy, which validated, after which myself and the Minister of Agriculture would put a joint cabinet paper to cabinet for approval. So those who are saying that the Barrow government is not doing anything, all this is within this 2017-2018 years. And this, Gambians must understand. Then when you find a broken system, it's difficult. I have to stood myself to follow this man to come back to forestry department because there was no capacity at all. And now looking at, when I went on trek, I found that some staff, you post them to certain because they cannot have accommodation, they cannot have office space. Now we are constructing 4 forest stations. That is out of our own funds. No donor funds. It's from our own funds. And in that light, we are also constructing, in 2019, our own head office in Abuko from funds that are locally generated. So you can see that,
Park.
Yeah?
The monkey park.
Yeah, the monkey park, yes. Somebody just talked about monkey park. The monkey park, we all know that when this thing was done, the first guys who immediately we took over in October, in February. Somebody just called me and said, Honorable Minister, some people are clearing Forest Park, Abuko. And I called the director. The director went there, and then we were able to stop them. When we stopped them, what happened was, the Department of Tourism, which we have already deal with this, sort this out, that I told them, one, these people, they came here without any EIA. They have not done any EIA, and which could be dangerous. And this is a fragile ecosystem where if you have hotels with all this noise, it will drive all the monkeys away. And now when we went back, and then there was a press release that government is using, and then we were able to convince the executive that this is not the right place to encroach on. And that we are now doing some restoration work with the Green Up Gambia. And with the support of Green Up Gambia, we are not only restoring, but we also look at the general ecology and see that water was absent, and they, with the Department of Forestry, they have now put a watering point for the monkeys. Now you can see, you will not see the monkeys crossing the road, going into communities to get water, because this is what was lacking. So we are working on that. But one thing I would also want to say here is this is a collaborative effort. All of us, we have to look at this where we can synergize and work together, Minister of Information, don't say it's information, but information has a lot to do with environment. And this is why we want to strengthen our cooperation with all the ministries to ensure that we achieve our targets under our National Development Plan, but as well as our multilateral agreements that we have signed with our partners. So on that note, I have today...
Something on the court cases?
Yes, yes. I mean, the litigations, already the executive director talked about this. And you can see the list. This is almost over 100 cases that we have in the court. Anti-littering and plastics. But plastics are more. In Banjul, in West Coast, but the ones that are not appearing in Banjul, you can do a bench warrant for them to appear before the court. And this issue of backlogs, I had the opportunity to talk to the Chief Justice and one of the senior judges in the High Court, and they promised me that they will deal with this issue, and a magistrate will be working on this at the Kanifing Magistrate Court. So you can see, you want to enforce, some people would stand in your way. But if you don't enforce, the same people will say, what is the Ministry of Environment doing? What is the National Environment Agency is doing? No, we have to be realistic about issues. This is a law, it must be abided by. And Gambians, I said yes, it's democracy. But democracy goes with responsibility. If it is your right, but you also should take your responsibility. As traders in information, the journalists, when you heard about something, before you publish it in your media, please come to us and then we clarify. I think for a good journalist, you must be able to investigate on issues before you put them on your papers. A lot of bad things are in the media. When I saw something, they said, this is fighting at the State House, which is wrong. This is somebody doing that. A dolphin died on the beach because of the effluent going into... No. We tracked this, and it was in Casamas that the photo was taken. That is bad journalism. You cannot allow that to happen because that is tarnishing your image. When people find about the truth, it tarnishes your image. And your paper or you whatever you say, people will no longer trust you. So you must be able to have an impeccable character to be able to sell your paper. That is very, very important. And the other thing that I would want for us to do, as a ministry, we are open. And anything that you want to find out through the Minister of Information, if you don't get him, you can get to the line ministry. When he tells you, you get him, he can refer you to the line ministry. So please, if anything happens, let's just work together. This is one country, one people. Nobody would come from anywhere to develop this country. Whatever intention you have, you live here, your children live here, your grandchildren live here. So let's work together with good heart for our country so that we can move as a country and develop this country. Wallahi, if we put our heads together and efforts together, this country, 11,000 square kilometers, with 2.9 million people, 1.9 million people, food security should not be our problem. This is why we are developing all these policies, to achieve that. Poverty should not be our problem. Why should it be our problem? When we have the human capital, when we have the resources at our disposal, but people bent on trading things that are not true. This is something that we need to address. As a democracy gives you the right to express yourself, but don't hurt the other person. Because the laws are there to protect that person as well. So it is important that we consultation. This is what we believe in. And on that note, I would want to thank the Honorable Minister and his team for organizing this press conference. And if anybody has any other question, the floor is open for you.
Happening at the State House, that the government spokesperson should have responded. You are absolutely right. That is the function of the government spokesperson. However, at the time that false video was being peddled on the internet, I was in a hospital in North Carolina. I was sick. I wasn't here. So I don't think really I can be walking out of a hospital bed just to go and in fact to dignify such a blatant lie that is just calculated really to tarnish and malign the character of this government. as journalists, Facebook, WhatsApp, when you say media, they're all part of media. They're social media. So you cannot really expunge, WhatsApp from Facebook, from social media. Democracy, for me, is the best system. But democracy is a pretty messy system. However, to deliberately be indulged in perpetuating falsehood, to be lying and maligning a president and his team out of sheer hatred and bigotry, I think is not even civilized. Democracy is not an oxymoron to the Gambia. We are a democratic lot. This is why all of us came together and removed a tyrant from this country. Now, the same people, including me, I was at the forefront from July 22nd, 1994. I never supported the Jammeh regime for a day. From day one, I was one of the first people that he arrested. I was one of the first people that he really subjected to some grueling kind of inhuman treatment that I had to leave this country. Now what we work for, Adam Barrow and his cabinet, and you sitting here with us, today I am embarrassed that some of us have decided to destroy the same thing that we built. That is not pleasant to say, but I'm going to say it. I am part of you. I still have a newspaper in America. I can go back and write the Gambia Echo. I am part of you. I am sometimes embarrassed to my bones, to my guts, when I see our own people lying on a daily basis against Barrow and his government. I think this is just wrong. That some of us must try and refocus ourselves. And this is our country, is so dear to us. The environment he was talking about is our best friend. Yet the greatest paradox of history is that the same environment that shelters us, that feeds us, is the same victim of us as people. So fixing the environment, fixing all this broken system is not very easy stuff, my friends. So let us sometimes be very appreciative and let us be very mitigating in our own presentation of facts as journalists. Sometimes our editorials are abhorrent. You can see malice. You can see it running, like Trump would say, I saw his face and I can see blood. You read some of these editorials and you just wonder, where are we headed? As I was in bed in hospital, a journalist in America said I was snobbish. I wasn't talking to the press. Anybody who knows me knows that is not true. I decided never to respond. I don't normally dignify falsehood. Sometimes when you respond to those kind of things, you even make them important. Nigerians, the Hausa people, even if you look at that stuff, that video we are talking about, you can tell these are not Gambians. What did they do? They killed the audio and they left the actions. And they said UDP and Barrow are in a war. I saw it. I wouldn't respond to those kind of things, really. So, I'm appealing to all of you in our profession as journalists. Let us remain professional. Let us love this country. I know you love it, but let us give this country what it deserves. For 22 years, we have been battered. Many people have lost their souls. Husbands disappeared, wives raped, girls murdered. In this country, soldiers, journalists, across the spectrum, there was total madness. Fixing that madness is not easy, my friends.
Giving people deadline, we are on the run. We are not saying, we cannot give deadlines because we are implementing an act of parliament. We already informed the people that the plastic ban order is in place. So anybody found wanting, I said it, anybody found wanting will face the law. So now we will come out with the media at the NEA will come out with some press releases, some, sensitization. But if we found anybody with plastics, either the manufacturing, importation, sale of it, use of it, all is banned. Single-use plastics. Because there are other forms of plastics. That is why we are looking for this technology to be able to reuse this and change the form and so that we can clear our environment of. Because most of the plastics, it takes minimum 400 years to decay in the environment. 400 years. So that is generations. Thank you.
The Ministry of Environment and NEA and others introduced to kind of give an alternative to these women because they use this to earn income. So if we stop plastic completely, I know some are still using it, but if we stop it completely, what will they now use to make money? So what other alternatives do you have for them to use to contain the ebe, to contain the super, etc.?
Gambians thought they can do anything that is even against the law, because we all felt that we have that freedom now that was not here. As even the executive director, could you imagine, when I stopped over to stop people selling plastic, if I'm not very much patient, I end up being beaten at times. Only people realize that he is the executive director and come to my aid. So I, at times, just demonstrate that to test the tune, what my people are feeling at times. They go to the supermarkets, the women will want to beat them. The Cafe Tuba gentlemen were informed. At some time they will ease it off. They will stop doing it, because we, around the Westfield area, we do invite them and tell them, you are not supposed to sell this thing. At times at night, I will come all the way from Tarini with my friends to stop them, you know, just to start doing something. But they will leave it. After a week or two, you come back, they are doing it. Madam explained about alternatives. Before the ban, if you were following GRTS, we had an agreement with them. We had a lot of sensitization. We were reminding the Gambian population. Even going to the market, they were taking, our moms were taking bottles to buy oil. Our moms were taking those handbags, going to the market with them. They stopped doing it only because of the plastic. Plastic, I always tell people, is a friend that turned to be an enemy. When it was introduced, it was to help us on the durability, to be able to serve us for many more times. But then that time, scientifically, people never knew it was going to bring us such a disaster. But when it is being realized, we are now told to change our altitude. We are also talking to investors. Some weeks back, a team of gentlemen came trying to introduce what we call biodegradable plastics. They call the oxoplastics. They will be coming. But the problem we are having with that one, maybe later on I will have to talk to my minister about that, is that they will want us to guarantee them that if they introduce, if they invest in such a thing, where the government will not again reintroduce, open up these, leave these plastics to be flowing, then their market will be dropping again. In my office right now, in fact, I forgot to bring a sample. They brought in you remember, paper bags, cartons. That gentleman invested, when this ban was on, invested a huge, colossal amount of millions of dollars. But now, he's seen plastic reoccurring. He came to my office. He was very much annoyed. I said, that is not my making, gentleman. I am not the one who is telling people to bring plastic. In fact, he prompted us to reiterate, to call my team and say, let's go ahead, get the support of the joint operations to start the reinforcement again, because people do invest. So these are some of the challenges we have. People want to come and reintroduce these biodegradable plastics, but they fear that when they put their millions of dollars, Gambia government will not support them in making sure that plastic. In fact, even an investor who wanted to do something on recycling is telling me, if only we bring in that machine, what are the guarantees that government will not come out with another policy changing? That I cannot say that. I'm not a minister. I'm not the president of this country. So these are their challenges. But there are alternatives. It's only our Gambia. Previously, we were buying granules from small papers. Why are we not doing that again? Huh? We still there. When the plastic ban came into play,
it has a human face. We don't ban the plastic. The law did not ban the plastic outright. There are alternatives, particularly when you are using food. But the issue of this ebe, in fact, you find that this ebe is even giving more problem to the animal. Because most of the time when you use it because you have some sauri, when you take the ebe, you leave it, that's what the animals also, the goat, the cattle will also use. And those plastics are stuck in the animal's stomach. So there's also a need people to look at the sense of dangers that the ebe is creating for other livestock. That will also depend. So that's why the issue of allowing this ebe to go is also creating more problems. And also becomes a vector carrying, because when you throw this thing, that's where other mechanisms, other modes of, other organisms can thrive. That can easily give us some other sicknesses. So people have to understand that snake, in as much we know that it has economic implication for people who are involved. But you have to also look at the implication, the other dangerous implication that the actions they are doing. So it is based on those situations that we felt that those selling ebe or those foodstuffs stuck in this plastic should not. And eventually you are also harming the life of the people. Because as the Honorable Minister mentioned earlier on, whenever you put heat in a plastic, it also through the chemical process, allow other aspects that are ingredients of the plastic to be part of the food. And we use it and we enjoy it. But those are what we call persistent organic pollutants. They come in your system for a long period of time. You will even forget when the impact will come to you after so many years. Like maybe 10 years after that, you'll forget that you have eaten plastic in Thailand area. So you have to look at the implication of those kind of things and possibly towards the ban. Because having a thorough assessment to realize the implication of the plastic, then comes the ban. So we have to look into that. With the issue of the cafe tuber, at the beginning, I think you have less cafe tuber before the turn of the new dispensation. We've gathered all the cafe tuber dealers. I remember that we had a very big meeting, and we told them, you are not supposed to be using this. But as we all know, after this, because as you said, when people say democracy, they feel that you can do whatever you feel like doing. And then democrats have to go with responsibility, even where it emanates from, because it's a phenomenon, but you have to understand that it has to be backed by responsibility. So now you have a lot, and we are the one also, it also us, as he said, we have to change up. If you see somebody selling ebe, you tell them, no, I can't use your ebe in plastic. Then if you don't see a buyer, there is no market. So all of us have to make sure that most of the people drink this cafe too. If you go there and they want to give you cafe too and a cup, you say, no, but it's supposed not to use. If you don't have clear, you'll change. But all of us have to come together to address a problem. And this is very, very important. If we don't change the way we live, then some of these things will always be of the minister. And I always said in most of the fora, I said that protecting environment, the first person you protect is yourself. And these people have to understand that, yes, there are institutions that are responsible of dealing with by nature of what they're supposed to do. But the dangers will not know whether you are a journalist, you are a carpenter, or you are a feeder. When the problem comes, it cuts across everyone. And that is why we have to look at as a collective responsibility to make sure that what is banned, because the government must have looked into it to say that we have to protect our people and all things within the country. So we have to look into that. So I think that's what I want to add.
Working on multilateral agreements, that requires partnership. And partnership within government, partnership with civil society, partnership with development agencies. Now, with regards to the entry point, we all know that our security is placed at the borders. We all know Gambia has a very elongated border because of the nature of the country. It's very porous. People can be coming in, and sometimes they declare that they have one thing, and you find out the other thing. Recently, at the Gambia ports, the National Environment Agency, with the support of our people there and the security, we were able to get somebody who was trying to bring in a container of plastic. And he declared that it is plastic shoes. So I can tell you we are doing our best. but it requires sincerity on the side of our securities. It requires sincerity, because if you catch those kind of things, somebody come and say, I have 50,000, and you are killing your population. What can $50,000 do for you? These are some of the things that we need as a country, we need to come up with. Be sincere to your country, be sincere to your job, and be responsible. This is what we mean. And these are some of the things is going on. Even at the borders, we know, whilst you hid under these plastic, yellow plastics particularly, and the small ones. We know it, but we are also doing our utmost within the limited resources available to have our inspectors who are, also thin on the ground to be able to man all the. We rely on other security apparatus to support the agency, to support the ministry to be able to detect this, and we are working on that to strengthen collaboration with others, especially the SIS. SIS is also doing some support in those areas. Now, with regards to Bakote, yes, Bakote, the council is responsible. But as you said, the ministry is always working with Bakote. When we first assumed power, I was working at SOS before becoming a minister. And I know how much we invest on our school children and the children in the SOS Children Village in terms of checking them to see what health hazards they have from the smoke. And the first thing we did, we gave advice to council. The executive director is here. We told the Lord Mayor that daily dumps need to be managed. And when we started doing that, and cover them with a thin layer of sand and do a little compacting. And when we did that, that reduces fire, because it reduces the buildup of methane. That sometimes sparks natural fire. When methane builds up and it has nowhere to escape, it just explodes as fire. And sometimes fire comes with the waste. This and the churais and the likes, you just put them in, it comes with it. And when we gave that advice, the stench, it suppresses the stench, that was the strong stench that was coming out. And it also, suppresses, minimizes the fire. But unfortunately, I was on my weekend when the director called me, say a boy was born in Kashu and he was arrested and taken to the police. He was born in Kashu and then the fire went out of hand. Imagine that, heap of waste has been there and, dried. When the fire broke out, the KMC had a standing MOU with the fire service. Fire service was called and they put the fire off, but unfortunately it didn't get down. So the fire was gradually eating up, and then it took time before we could put the fire off. So I can tell you, yes, the ministry is working very well, and the National Environment Agency with council. There are other plans that we are working on. It's premature to tell those plans to the press, because I know you will hold those accountable. But until we're sure that we have it on the table, we will hatch those plans to you. Thank you.
It reminds me during my first 5 minutes at the landing site there about the foreign fishermen overside our sea.
Yes, in fact, we are still on the press conference.
People use what we call film token. It's a net which normally catch all kind of fish, respective of their sizes. Unlike sometimes they use these nets and then leave it inside the water and to trap the big fish, which sometimes cause accident. And when we read the Ministry of Fisheries, what they told us is like film tourne is allowed. So what is your concern about the people responsible of the environment here?
Yes, I said I'm still on the press and before I'm not too sure if the Ministry of Fisheries would tell you that nets that are banned, because you have categories of nets that have diameters that are banned, that the Fisheries Act would not allow you to use. And I remember when I was the Director of NGO Affairs, these are issues that we were dealing with. Some of the fishermen, they will come and, but the problem here is, this is encouraged by people themselves, because they live with people who know that these net sizes are not right, and they should not be used in our waters. And yet still they live with them because they are paying rent to them, they are giving them their daily fish and whatever. But I mean, I think it should be the duty. You know, when we say citizenship, citizenship goes beyond just being part of a population. You have to actively take part in the development of your country. And anything that is derailing the process of development in your country, you should be concerned and be able to report it. This is why we have the civil society who are demanding from the duty bearers. And it's the same, the population should be able to make a demand on the duty bearers, but as well as take their responsibilities. So I think here is the question of, you know, patriotism. We should be patriotic to our country, regardless of what. Because when these resources, I'm telling you, these are infinite resources. When they get finished, you know, the fish experts will tell you pelagic fish, you know, quickly replenish. Yes, it quickly replenish, but, you know, the time it takes to replenish. So this is why government is putting all these measures to ensure that, you know, we sustainably use and manage our natural resource base. So, but I'm not sure if fisheries will tell you that that is allowed. I'm not too sure.
You see, with most of these fishing nets, their problem is the type of net mesh size they are going to have in place. If the mesh size is below the actual recommended mesh size, it will cause what you are saying. We call it ghost fishing. You leave the net there to be floating on its own. It will be trapping anything. If the mesh size is small, it will be targeting both the bigger fishes and the smaller ones. That is where the danger comes. And usually, with mesh sizes, the fisheries department will assign a designated area where you can use those type of fish nets. This is where most of it fails, because the fisher folks will not respect the mesh size regulation. They will not respect the area they are going out to fish. These are the challenges. But some of the ones we are also observing, it's not because they are living it, but because the net is lost at sea, it keeps on fishing, do a lot of ghost fishing. So our marines are not equipped to be searching for those particular ones. But it should have been in other countries, they have the marine department that goes out looking for those type of nets. So these are some of the challenges. It's the mesh size of the problem. Yeah. But there are regulations for it. It's difficult to police all of these things, but actually, I think that's the only problem.
I thank you all for coming here, and I wish you a pleasant Friday and a pleasant weekend. I think we had listened to some very important stories here about what is happening, and some facts and policy decisions that the government has embarked on. And I think as members of the press, you also have a responsibility, a social responsibility, to transmit the messages that have been disseminated here, so that the greater population would know. There are people using plastic, probably they do not even know it's illegal. You know, so I think also the ministry also should be coming to GRTS on a regular basis to talk about plastic. Public education. I remember back in the days at Radio Gambia, we had what we call bantaba, public bantaba. I think sometimes having programs in the local languages will also help. You know, instead of just going to arrest a local fisherwoman just for using plastic, we educate, we sensitize, and thereafter maybe the law can come in. I thank you very much for your participation, and God bless you.